1 second. How you doing, Inspired? How's your day been?
Good. Just working, just getting off work. So just been kind of listening into spaces, but just getting off work. How's everything going? How's Sheree? How's everything going here?
Yeah, pretty good. Been working on this test, trying to finish it up. Should be done by tomorrow at the latest. How you doing, Sheree? How you doing, Insane? Um, okay, so basically, I'm gonna probably spend about 30 minutes going through the first part of this, which will be going over the presentation, and then the second part will be like at least a 30-minute like Q&A. We just ask any questions. You can also ask questions as we go along, so feel free to come up to speak. Um, but yeah, let's get started. Basically, we developed this boot camp because we want to have as many freedmen qualified to run for office. Um, there's 32 million freedmen that are voters, eligible voters, and about out of that 32 million, I would say at minimum 20 million are eligible to run. So, um, we need to get to hundreds of thousands and millions of people running for office, um, so we can just take over as many seats as we can. But yeah, let's go over the boot camp. Y'all can follow along in the jumbotron. Click the FNN link if you want to watch along, and then if you want to later go through the boot camp in full by going through all the videos, you can do that as well. Okay, so boot camp. Get active in your democracy. Okay, the first part is about politician. This is broken up into three parts: politicians, policy, and party. Those are kind of like the three important PPPs. So, politician, party, or politician, policy, and party. So, how to become a Freedman candidate. You can go back through and watch these full videos from the FEC that we put out. I'm going to give like a briefer overview here.
Testing the water.
So, okay, first, part one is about elections and how do you get qualified to run for elected office. In order to do that, you need two things. You need to, one, get a EIN number, and you can get that for free on the IRS website. You'll get an EIN number, and then you need to use that to open a bank account for your for the campaign that you're running. That's how you'll collect donations. Obviously, you need to choose your elected office. There's about 60 people in the Congressional Black Caucus today, so that's about 60 seats that we want to replace. And there's 435 people in the House entirely, so we can go after those seats. There's 100 people in the Senate. We can go after those seats. And then we also want to run people on the for president, vice president, and then on the local level for like mayor, judges, city council, DAs, whatever. So the first part in terms of becoming qualified is the testing the waters phase. The good thing about the testing the water phase is you have up to a $5,000 limit that you can basically use as um, a a test period to gain momentum and see if you have enough traction behind you. And you don't have to register for with the FEC at that time, but you need to keep track of all of the donations you raised up to that 5K limit. And then when you hit that 5K limit, that's when you'll need to register with the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. They regulate elections in the United States. And so with that 5K limit, that's when you'll need to register. But up until then, you can campaign in terms of testing, polling people, seeing how many people are willing to support you, running. You can run some type of ads, but you have to put it in the context of that you're not actually an official candidate yet. So that's the important caveat there. Okay, so once you hit that 5K limit, you'll need to register with the FEC. And the FEC requires you to fill out this form. It's actually pretty straightforward. You fill out things like your name, uh, the name of your campaign, the bank account that you created, the EIN number that you got from that free IRS tool, and then any financial records in terms of how much money you raised for that 5K, for example. So that's why it's good to have that bank account set up already. Um, then once you register with the FEC, you can start working to get voter roll information. So information on people in your district or in your state or wherever you're running, in your city, for example. And you can get ballot access by contacting your state secretary or the election office. So either one. And then there's a few cybersecurity tips. You want to create for your campaign a dedicated contact. So you want to dedicate a number and a dedicated email. Um, and you can use free tools like Gmail and Google Voice, for example. But you at least want something uh, that's going to work for you. Um, you also want to use two-factor authentication, things like Google Authenticator and Authy, which gives you a one-time code every time you need to log in to make sure your campaign doesn't get hacked. Um, Instead of using a phone number, because if you get your phone number hacked, people can get your code. The Google Authenticator and the Authy app gives you a unique code each time, so that's why it's a better option. And then in terms of donation, which is the campaign finance part of this, you're going to need to uh, create a candidate committee. Usually, it's a political party. It could be an unofficial organization as well, or something like that. But for most people that run, like if you're running for the Democrats or if you're running for the Republicans, usually they are your candidate committee. Or if you have like a campaign team, if you have a big enough budget, you'll have a dedicated committee for your campaign. You also need to appoint a treasurer, and the purpose of appointing a treasurer is to make sure that any of the donations are, obviously kept track of, but also, you have to report to the FEC every month and update them on your contributions. And so the treasurer can help, you know, do that for you, and it's required by the FEC. And then when it comes to collecting, tracking, and spending, uh, we recommend using tools like GoFundMe. There's other tools out there like ActBlue and other tools. GoFundMe is one of the few that gives you a way to create a goal and for people to be able to track, how close you are to your goal and everything like that. Whereas most other forms of donations are pretty blank. You just put money in and you don't know how much the candidate has raised unless you go to the FEC website and look it up yourself. Um, so it's a way to keep the candidate accountable, and for a candidate, it's a way for you to let your constituents know how close you are to reaching the goal, and let them know, how much progress you're making. There's also rules around post-election. So let's say um, you didn't spend all your money in the campaign. Usually, most campaigns spend either close to 100%, or if there's amount left over, they usually use it to run their next campaign. The FEC has rules on post elections, like what you can do with the money. You obviously can't use it to go, just splurge and buy a Lambo or anything, like that. But you can use it to start a new campaign. You can use it to pay off any debts for your campaign, or to pay off any services that you've used for your campaign. So obviously campaign related expenses. So part two of the presentation is about policy. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all the videos, but you can go through it on your own time as you go through the presentation yourself. Um, so policy is about our Freedmen agenda. and what we want to accomplish as a community and what we want to make our priorities. So I've been able to, with the help of the party, distill these agenda items down to three: reparations now, freedmen reconstruction, and genocide prevention. So, part one, reparations now. Obviously, our promised land of 40 acres and a mule. These were referenced not only in Special Field Order 15, which we all know about, but it was also mentioned in the act that established the Freedmen's Bureau. That was signed March 3rd, 1865, as well as the Freedmen's Bank Act was signed on the same day. So we also looked at the United Nations definition of reparations, and they had five terms that determined what reparations were: restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and discontinuation. So, restitution is restoring you to your previous state in any possible way. So, for example, that would be things like the Freedmen's Bank, the Freedmen's Bureau, our 40 acres. It would mean things like any wealth that was lost, whether that be Bruce's Beach that was recently recovered, or what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. And then in compensation, there's multiple definitions. I won't read through all of them, but there's things like moral damage, loss of potential income, including or loss of income as well as loss of potential income, which is important. Um, and basically any form of economic loss that can be calculated. And then satisfaction, obviously, we have to be satisfied. Us as freedmen would have to be satisfied with this form of reparations that is being offered. And then discontinuation means discontinuation of the harm, meaning uh, the UN says non repetition, guarantees of non repetition. So basically, promising to not repeat. And obviously, if you do repeat the harms, such as genocide, reparations will be owed again. So we can't have situations where we get paid reparations and then, you know, the white supremacists are like, well, now you got paid reparations. We're going to be even more evil to you. And then complain when we, you know, bring up the point of genocide and the fact that now we're owed reparations again. So no, if you create the harm again, you owe us again. So discontinuation of the harm. And then in terms of calculations and graphs, um, you know, obviously we're all familiar with the lineage economic gaps. Uh, one in wealth, the other in income. Uh, White people make twice as much in income every year and 10 times as much they own in wealth. So these are very important numbers. Uh, Shout out to Dr. Darity and Kirsten Mullen for making the lineage wealth gap an important metric to understand and why it's crucial to our reparations. Now, one thing, you know, I did to research what we're owed in reparations is I added up all of our lost, um, going back to compensation, the definition of reparations by the UN standard. I looked at all the things that were lost and I tried to calculate and add interest on them. So we got the Freedmen Bank. Our 100,000 of our ancestors saved up $57 million in 1874. Today, that's the equivalent of $1.3 trillion. And our 40 acres and a mule, which was given to us in 1865 and then taken away after Lincoln's assassination and Andrew Johnson became president and pardoned the rebels, Confederates. Um, that 40 acres would be 400 million in 1865, and today is worth $16 trillion. And then, last but not least, our 4 million ancestors, they were valued at $4 billion in 1860 by the Department of War, and that 4 billion in 1860 would be 230 trillion today. So this is a minimum total of about 250 trillion, which would be about 6 million per freedman pre 1900s in terms of reparations. Now, freedmen reconstruction. In terms of freedmen reconstruction, we define the definition of a freedman, which means Africans who were emancipated in the United States or the five tribes and their descendants. And there's an important difference between race, nationality, and citizenship. You can use race terms like African, Black, Colored, Negro, Afro interchangeably. Nationality like American, for example, or if you're from one of the five tribes, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Seminole, Creek, Cherokee. And then there's three types of citizenship. Freedman, native, and immigrant. And obviously, some people may be mixed, but if you have one ancestor at least that was a freedman, then you're a freedman, right? Now, when it comes to when these definitions were created, 1865, American freedmen were created, and then a year later, in 1866, tribal freedmen from the five tribes, Creek freedmen, Cherokee freedmen, Choctaw freedmen, Chickasaw freedmen, and Seminole freedmen were also emancipated. Now, in terms of numbers, about 4 million American freedmen were emancipated, and about 7,500 freedmen were emancipated from the five tribes. About 2,500 Cherokee freedmen, about 2,300 Choctaw freedmen, about 1,500 Creek freedmen, about 1,000 Chickasaw freedmen, and around 300 Seminole freedmen. In terms of overall numbers, from that around 4 million in 1865, we've grown to 42 million freedmen in the United States, which represents about 80% of all African Americans that filled out the 2020 census. So out of the 47 million African Americans, 80% are freedmen, which is 42 million. So from 1865 till now, we've basically grown 1.5%, which is also a function of genocide that we'll get into shortly. Now, in terms of Reconstruction 2.0, we need to bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, our Freedmen schools, which were under the Freedmen's Bureau, Freedmen hospitals, which were also under the Freedmen's Bureau, and then Freedmen's Bank, which was a separate act of Congress. All of these are important. These Freedmen institutions are important for them to exist in this country basically indefinitely. Just like we have the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Bureau of Indian Education for the Native Americans, we need to have our own institutions as well. Okay, next is genocide prevention. So what we did is we looked at the United Nations definition of genocide, and then because out of the 196 countries that are a part of the United Nations, the United States and many others had to implement the law in their own country. So there is a U.S. law for genocide, and the U.S. law draws from the UN one, so they're virtually identical. So I'll just read through the U.S. one, and then I'll break it down in terms of what it means to us and examples. So first, whoever, whether in time of peace or in time of war, with the specific intent to destroy in whole or in part, a substantial part or whole or substantial part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, by one, killing members of that group, two, causes bodily injury to members of that group, causes the permanent impairment of the mental faculties of members of that group through drugs, torture, or similar techniques. Three, subjects the group to conditions of life that are intended to cause the physical destruction of that group in whole or in part. Four, imposes measures intended to prevent births within the group, and 5, transfers by force children of the group to another group. So we summarize each point accordingly. So for kills members of that group, lynchings and massacres, in terms of law enforcement killings and hate crime killings, we make up the highest percentage by percentage of the population of all of those. Physical and mental harm includes mass incarceration, sentencing disparities, misdiagnosis and overprescription, wrongful convictions, and then subjecting the group to conditions of life that are intended to cause its physical destruction of the group in whole and or in part can be summarized by apartheid in food and water, apartheid in education, in finance, in housing, apartheid in healthcare, and apartheid in employment. Extermination, which summarizes imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, not only includes the abortion rate, which we make up the highest percent by population. Also, we make up the highest of infant mortality, as well as maternal mortality during abortions and when giving birth. And then we make up the highest, our Freedmen women, of the hysterectomy rate, which means the removal of the uterus, which obviously prevents birth. And then family separation, which is about transferring by force children of the group to another group. That includes the child welfare system. Out of the all the money given in the child welfare system, only 3% goes to black families, 96% goes to white families. And then child protective services. So out of all families, black families are 77% more likely to have their children removed than white families in the same risk factor of harming their kids. And then lastly, foster care. So even though we make up about 14% of the US population, we make up twice the percent in foster care. Basically, we're twice as overrepresented in foster care than we should be. All of these are important. All of these metrics are important to bring about because genocide prevention is enables us to not only track the harms, but make our policy based on the harms and where they need to be reduced to. So, for example, for virtually every harm, we shouldn't have more harm than the percent of the population that we represent, if that, right? So whenever there's a spike, like for example in unemployment, we're almost always twice we represent twice as many people that are unemployed than the percent of our population, and then we're usually 5 to 10 times higher the white population of unemployed. And then in terms of police killings, black men are 4 times more likely than white men to be killed, and black women are basically 3 times as likely to be killed than white women. So all of these disparities can be tracked, measured, and legislated to make sure that the harms are not um, to levels that are at genocide, as well as enforcing the current genocide laws that are on the book. For example, um, all of these police killings, all of these lynchings that are happening, the U.S. law for genocide, if you kill someone, should result in the death penalty, which is capital punishment, or life imprisonment, depending on the state, and a fine of $1 million. That's the crime of killing someone, which is an act of genocide in the United States. So all of these, like Breonna Taylor, that's an act of genocide. Um, Jalen Walker, that's an act of genocide. So we need to understand why it's important that we focus on not just talking about benign neglect or racism, which other people in the United States are now talking about, but we need to talk about genocide, which no other people in the United States are experiencing. Okay, last but not least, party. So this part is data that we've collected on not only Freedmen in terms of where we stand politically and our numbers, but also looking at the entire United States and then breaking down things like the value of a vote, and then we go into looking at how the party and how our endorsement can help you and what tools we can bring to bear. Okay, so on the data part, we took the data from the US Census, we took data from Pew Research and from Gallup, and we were able to basically come up with our freedmen numbers. So out of the 42 million freedmen in the country, 32 million of us are eligible voters. Now, out of that 32 million, about 22 million of us registered to vote in 2020, and 20 million of us came out to vote in 2020. Now, out of the 20 million that came out to vote, 13.4 million were Democrats, 6 million were independents, and 600,000 were Republicans. Now, what's not initially obvious is there's 12 million of us that are non-voting and 10 million of us that are not registered. And if you look at percentages, the 12 million of us that are non-voting are just as big essentially as the Democrats that are voting. So if the non-voters and the independents got together, they could silence the Democrats and the Republicans, which is what we're trying to do with the Freedmen Party. We're going to play offense by waking up the non-voters, getting them registered and getting them voting. And then we're going to work with the independents, the 6 million independents that already exist, that maybe don't even know that there's 6 million of them that are around the country, to all get voting towards our own candidates and not waiting for candidates to be selected for us. And the purpose for candidates to know this information is for them to understand where the trends are going in this country. So, for example, we broke down using Pew Research from 2004 till today, looking at where people are registered, regardless of their status of citizenship. 43% are independent, 27% are Democrats, and 27% are Republicans. And if you look at the trend over time, the Republicans are dying the fastest, and the Democrats are following closely behind, and the independents are on the rise. And the biggest difference between the independents and the other two parties was after January 6th, where 50% of the country were registered as independents, and 25% were Democrats and 25% were Republicans. So that's the trend of the country. The other thing we looked at is the value of a vote over time. And the way this is calculated, you add up all the campaign spending per election cycle, and you divide that by all the votes that were received that election cycle. So in 2000, it was around $38 per citizen. In 2004, it was around $44 per citizen. 2008, it was $48 per citizen. 2012, it was $54 per citizen. And then in 2016, it dropped to $51 per citizen. And then in 2020, it skyrocketed back up to $90 per citizen. Now, the trend, if you can see, is the value of a vote is increasing over time. So whoever tells you that your vote is worthless is not understanding the trend of the country. Also, in terms of the value of our block vote, we can calculate that. 32 million eligible voters times 90 votes, or $90 per citizen, that is $3 billion approximately. So if we can all come together, 32 million of us, and all vote in a block, that would be worth $3 billion, which means that, for example, in 2020, Michael Bloomberg spent $1 billion and lost in the primaries, right? So coming together as a block is valuable, and it would bring leverage to negotiate not only who we're going to endorse for our own party, but also if we're going to even endorse candidates from other parties as well. And if you look at the value of the non-voters, so it's basically taking $90. If 12 million of us all take our $90 worth of a vote and all burn it, that's the equivalent of burning $1 billion and not spending it. So whether the $3 billion, you wouldn't give anybody $3 billion without any guarantees of policies and agendas and returns on investment, right? And you wouldn't burn $1 billion if you had it. So what we have to understand is our vote is super valuable and we should never waste it. Now, another important fact that a lot of people don't know is out of 50 states, 41 states allow independent voters in the primary. So if you're an independent voter, you can vote in 41 states in the primary. And obviously, you can vote in every state in the general election. Now, last slide is about our endorsement and how we can help. So on the business side, we have FNN, and we can help in terms of um, doing interviews with you and covering your campaign as well. We can conduct polls and track your candidacy. We can help you with your socials and any advertisements that you need. We can also help with campaign videos and producing those. And then obviously we've developed this new boot camp, so we recommend everybody go through the boot camp in full. So go through all the videos that I skipped. And then we also have the convention. So every year we're going to hold a convention. It's actually a requirement to become a national party by FEC rules. So we held our first one on Juneteenth this year. Dr. Deborah Johnson and Cherie were there. Shout out to them. And so at each convention, we're going to have our endorsements there. This past year, we had Marcel, Tamara, and Reverend Somerville. Um, so, the next year we'll introduce our endorsements at our next convention as well. On the tech side, if you need, we can help build your website. We can also help with robocalls, texts, and emails. For example, this past election cycle with Marcel, we were able to do 100,000 robocalls in a day. And that's something we developed within the party. And we've been using that tool to help other causes, for example, like for Jalen Walker, for Emmett Till, for ACA 3, for AB 3121. Basically, whenever there's calls to action, either within your campaign or you need to get the word out, we can help you with that. And then the last part is R&D, research and development. So this is akin to Cambridge Analytica, but with the good heart. Basically, we've been developing our own analytics where we can help predict elections as well as measure your key performance indicators, things like your price per vote, things like how much money you've raised, how much you spent, how much votes you're predicted to get, and your percent of spend is percent of the vote. And then we can also track your competitors and see how you're stacking up with your competitors in the campaign as you go to keep track and make sure that you're heading in the right direction. So the purpose of developing these tools is to make sure all of freedmen that are running for office have the best resources, have the best intel, and are not at a disadvantage in terms of running as an independent, or even if you run as a Democrat or a Republican, you still need to make a pledge for our Freedmen agenda. Reparations now, Freedmen reconstruction, and genocide prevention. Okay, so the last part is the test. I'm almost done with it. I need like another day to finish it up. So look out for that. But if you click here, it'll take you to our form, and you can fill that out in the meantime with your information to get notified when we finally release it. But in the meantime, I would say go through and study the presentation, the boot camp, and then go through it as many times as you can. Go through all the videos. and then be ready for the test once it comes through. We're basically going to use the test to um, help prioritize candidates that are doing the best on the test, and then anybody who needs help on the test and may have missed questions will know which concepts you need help on, and then we'll work on strengthening those so you have the best campaign you can have. So now I'll open it up to questions and to the rest of the speakers and anybody that's listening that wants to come up. We can have an open conversation, ask any questions that you have about the boot camp or about running for office or about the party, policy, or politicians. So go for it. Anything my co-host want to say, A Boogie or Inspired?
Yeah, man. Hey, thank you for holding the space. Peace and reparations to the room. This is just one of our topics. I'm also a member of the Freedmen Party. Shout out to all the party members and all listeners. But no, I'm just sitting back, just learn mode still. I've heard this information, so just getting putting it back in the back of my brain again. So yeah, man, thank you for holding the space. I ask that anybody in the room retweet the space, please. Also, please go to our webpage, freedmen.party, and check out some of our initiatives. Look around. You can donate. We have a couple of initiatives. One of the initiatives is to clone our host. So if y'all want to donate to that fund, we want to clone our host. So no, that's it, man. Good evening.
You're hilarious, A Boogie. Inspired, did you want to say anything?
No, I didn't have anything to add. I think I really like the comprehensive, the breakdown and everything. I think it's a really great tool, and everything that you're offering, excuse my family, but everything that you're going to be offering is going to be able to compete with any other party. So I'm really excited.
Definitely, and we love the Freedmen in the background, so don't trip.
The baby Freedmen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go to Cherie, then Jesus Girl, then Max, then Insane for any questions, comments, or concerns.
Do you hear me okay? I'm outside walking my dog right now.
Yeah, what up, Cherie?
What's good, Eric?
Good to see you. We still need to reschedule that little thing.
I know, Eric. Okay. But no, seriously, I appreciate how much you put into this. And
Thank you.
one thing that I would add that I think would be would help get more people interested in the boot camp in general is really understanding all of the different elected positions
Right.
from the local level up to the federal level.
Definitely.
Because I think when people, like you mentioned it, but we usually just think of like representatives for the House or the Senate, and then not really thinking about how big of an opportunity this is when we're talking about cultivating and supporting candidates from the ground up. That just opens up a whole new avenue. So yeah, I think that would be interesting to really understand those positions better, and then more people will step up because they won't think that they have to be so front and center, like, you know what I mean, or be on TV or something like that, but still have an impact. So
most definitely, that's actually a great idea. Two parts to that. One, I definitely want to add more information that applies to the local and the state level that's not necessarily clear. One of the reasons, one of the reasons I focused on the federal level. So I'll say two things. One, during Reconstruction, we had about 2,000 people in elected office. So that was like the height of Reconstruction. Now, obviously, everyone wasn't at the federal level in terms of Congress. There's only 535 seats in Congress and 2 in the president, vice president. So that's still 1,500 other seats on the local and state level that we filled. You know what I mean? Even if we, obviously we didn't fill all of those seats, but you know what I mean? Now, the other side to this that's really fascinating, during Reconstruction, Congress had so much power, or, they had the same amount of power, but it made me realize how much power they had. So Andrew Johnson, he was an a-hole, obviously, didn't like Freedmen. And so what he did is he tried to veto almost everything that was being done for freedmen. So um, out of the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank, um, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, the Reconstruction Acts, out of all of those and more, uh, Andrew Johnson had 21 vetoes, and out of all those vetoes, Congress overrode 71% of them. And without those overriding uh, votes, we wouldn't have gotten even what we barely had during Reconstruction, basically. So it made me realize the really importance uh, of Congress, but obviously we still need people running on the local and state level as well. City council, mayor, judges, DAs, chief of police, sheriff, all of those things. Um, another interesting thing that we're doing going forward, and we'll provide this to our endorsements, is we're basically breaking down all of the data we've gathered so far about like our freedmen affiliations, and then we are combining that with data about where we live and figuring out, okay, well, where are the independents, where are the Republicans, where are the Democrats, and that type of information is going to help us like supercharge people's campaigns so they know who they need to talk to and where they are, and how to communicate effectively so that their campaigns are successful. So I'm definitely in agreement with all of that. Also, what we looked at recently is breaking down which offices are most challengeable. So, for example, we looked at everyone in the Congressional Black Caucus, and out of there's about 53 people who are in the House, and out of those 53, about 19 of those are in states, or sorry, in districts where we either have a black majority or have more blacks than white in that district. Now, I went through the rest of the 435 districts, and I looked at the same data, and there's about three more districts that we have similar demographics that we don't have seats for. So that means if we're able to organize for those seats in those districts, we can have more representation in Congress. Um, and then if you look at um, all of oh, sorry, that's actually, yeah, that's CBC. And then if you look at all of Congress, it goes up to like 36 about. So there's basically 3 to 6 more seats that we should have in Congress, where we either have, like I said, a black majority or more blacks than whites in that district. Um, but yeah, great points, Cherie. Definitely agree. And uh, I want to have something akin to what the Just Democrats did. They had at minimum 10,000 people nominated for elected office, and they had out of that 10,000, 2,000 that they endorsed, and out of that 2,000, only one won, which was AOC. So I want us to, if we use their batting average as a metric, and I think we could have a better batting average, 1 out of 10,000, that's kind of trash. But that aside, if we use that as a bare minimum, like we want to have hundreds of thousands and millions of people running for office, um, making sure that every seat that we can challenge is primaried. We don't want anybody in Congress to feel safe. There's so many seats. When I was looking at the election results for like Marcel and Tamara and Reverend Somerville, and I had to like scroll through, most seats were not actually challenged. Well, not most, but like there was many seats that were not challenged, I should say. Um, and that was kind of crazy to see. And it's a very common fact. A lot of people just win because they have their name on the ballot. Nobody challenges them, so they win by default. So that we need to stop that, and we need to make sure that we get into these offices, and then anyone that's in offices gets primary, so they don't feel comfortable, just eschewing. Okay, let's go to Jesus Girl, then Max, then Fly McFly.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you so much for holding the space once again. Just want to say a few words. I don't have any questions because I'm learning myself. And so there are so many organizations that function like this, to the degree that they help people, when they want to run for office and guide them and what have you. And so I'm just so excited that somebody had the vision to create such a platform for us for such a time as this. There is nothing more important to American freedmen at this time, although we have a list of things, reparations probably being one of the foremost, but nothing is more critical than us running and occupying these political seats. And like I said, California Emerge is one of the organizations, that helps people when they want to run for office, particularly women. This is a women's organization. But there are so many. I mean, this is just flooded. The country is flooded with these types of organizations, but none target American freedmen. So I really commend what you all are doing. I mean, I've always known that we are the most brilliant people on the planet. Mm-hmm. We are the most intelligent people on the planet. It's obvious in everything that we have contributed to the society. But Eric, your diligence and this wide, just this large, pool of knowledge that you bring to us, and the exhibition of the knowledge, it's so commendable, so highly commendable. And knowledge is power. We've always heard that, but this is where it is. It's political power. And so I would also love to see, if you have not, and I'm pretty sure you have, you guys are so thorough, but I would love to see a part of this become what also needs to be taught and for us to learn is the legislative process. How bills become laws. So many of our elected officials, they get up there and they get elected to these seats, and you check their records, they haven't written any meaningful legislation. So what is the purpose of running for office if you're not going to get there and use all the intelligence that you have to author legislation and fight for it until it gets passed, not just introduced. I look down, I'll use Jim Clyburn, for example. If you look at his record, his political record, so many of the things that we think would help us, they don't go past the introduced stage. That means nothing. That means absolutely nothing for you to sponsor or introduce something that you have no intention of fighting until the end, until that thing is passed. And so I would really, love to see that a part of this boot camp. But again, I commend you. I appreciate you guys. I just really love what you're doing. And a lot of times I just stick my head in and I need to bounce back out because I'm in some class or doing something. I'm a student at USC getting a master's in public administration because I want to be able to run for office someday. And so, but I need to have this wisdom that you guys are sharing. So keep up the great work, and I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Jesus Girl. Really appreciate the compliments. We think it's super important that we get more of our freedmen politically educated and ready to run for office. And really the only requirement to run for office are age requirements. You have to be obviously a citizen, but you have to be 25 years or older to run for the House, 30 years or older to run for the Senate, and 35 years or older to run for president or vice president. Those are the only requirements. Now, if you think you're unqualified after meeting the age requirements and going through our boot camp, that means you need to, get your confidence up, because just after emancipation, like I said, 2,000 of our freedmen ancestors were in political office. So if 2,000 were in political office, more than 2,000 ran for political office. So we have to really, really understand the footsteps that we're following, honor those ancestors who showed us the way, and make sure that we represent and have people in office that can bring policy to the floor. So, for example, I know you're part of NAASD, which I love. Friday, she's in the party, and Friday is awesome as well. Um, we added on our policy page, freedmen.party/policy. Actually, I could pull that up and show y'all. Freedmen.party/policy. I added two things. So on the normal website, let me change the screen. Chrome tab. Okay. So, okay. Just on the policy page, right? Reparations now, Freedmen Reconstruction, genocide prevention, right? I added a pledge button. So you can click pledge. And if you're running for office or already in elected office, you can put your name in, your email, number, where you're at, which office you're in or running for, which party you're in. And then you have to make a pledge, a public pledge to campaign, endorse, and introduce or vote on Freedmen policy supporting each agenda item. Reparations now, Freedmen Reconstruction, and genocide prevention. And also recently added, did you go through a boot camp, right? So now we have a way to keep politicians accountable, but also to Jesus Girl's point, I added example legislation to each page. So if you click example, it'll take you to HR 1865, which is what NAASD has worked on and developed in collaboration with people like Dr. Darity and Kirsten Mullen. So we have that. If you click example, it'll show you that legislation. If you go to Freedmen Reconstruction, it'll show you, if you click example, it'll take you to the Freedmen's Bureau Act, which can be a model for today. We need to remove some of the sexist language, but overall, it's pretty much there. And then under genocide prevention, we got videos, we got the same type of information. If you click example, it takes you to the U.S. law that currently exists for genocide. So we're working on something focused for freedmen in terms of not only enforcing the laws that exist, but enhancing the laws on genocide as well. So yeah, I definitely think it's important for legislation. And actually, just personally, even before, you know, the party really became a thing, I always felt that politicians should have their legislation ready before they even run, really. Like, you should know what bills you're going to campaign on and introduce. That's how I personally feel. And so for the party, I kind of want to make that a standard where at least you have policy that you can share and examples so people can actually read through and say, okay, oh, they're not just BSing and saying, oh yeah, reparations now. No, what legislation are you going to introduce on day one? You know what I mean? What is the bill that you're going to put into office? Is it going to be for freedmen only, or is it going to be not specific, right? Not lineage based, right? So like these types of things are important, and you don't want to get caught into the fanfare of, oh, I'm doing reparations. You want to make sure that people are actually have our best interests and that they have the legislation. And then for our candidates, like I said, we want them to have example legislation so they can run on not only the agenda items, reparations now, freedmen reconstruction, and genocide prevention, but also have the actual legislation to back it up so they're not just running on air. Let's go to Max, then Fly McFly, then we'll go to Dr. Deborah Jenkins.
Hey everyone, I don't really have much to say. I'm still in the learning process and listening process, but I guess the question I did want to ask, you were talking about the voter registration data that we had for the freedmen in the United States. So do you have it broken down by state yet?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that's what we're actually doing now. We have it broken down by district. Um, we have the overall state numbers, and so basically, what I'm doing is merging the two and trying to kind of compile a map to make it visualized. So basically, you have the data in the spreadsheet, but it's not public yet, and it's not breaking down into like a visualization.
So then, when it will be set up so that when it comes down to campaigning, you'll be able to say, go to this area, go to this area.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, sorry.
No, yeah, definitely. Keep going.
Okay, because that'd be great. Because if you could just start your campaign off, obviously just targeting these areas. Obviously, I'm here in California, it's a big state, so it's like if I could just focus on targeting certain areas, that'd be ideal.
Exactly. We think this data is not only important for candidates, but also for voters, because voters can then look at, okay, where do I have political power? Do I have it more in the Senate, or do I have it more in the House based on from my demographics, or things like, oh, if people want to repatriate, like people like Black majority state, people like state power and Black American homeland, like people who are with repatriation, this gives them data on where to repatriate to, like how many more reinforcements are needed in South Carolina District 6 where Marcel's running, how many are needed here, etc. So that's kind of where we're moving towards. I'm going to have it done this week, so it'll be ready to introduce next week. um and yeah,
And will it be the split too, or like not just like, oh, this is all the Freeman, will it be independent, Democratic?
yeah, it'll be broken down exactly by party affiliation. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yep. And the crazy thing about all of this, that I've learned by kind of trying to put this together with the party, is a lot of this data is not actually existing in the way that we need it, because these white people really don't care. They've never had to put together the work to actually look at it. And if they have, it's proprietary within a party. You know what I mean? Like what Cambridge Analytica did for the GOP in 2016.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because with that data, essentially, especially with the social media, I mean, you can do a national campaign. You just target everyone heavy.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really missing when it comes to us. Like, we have to know where we are politically, and then we also have to know, the trends in the country. Like I mentioned, like most people are becoming independents, but if people keep thinking that there's only Republicans and Democrats out there, they're gonna trip up. And then I was actually surprised to learn that we had 6 million independent freedmen. Um, just based on the marketing of the GOP and the Democrats, you would think that the Republicans would be the second highest number behind the Democrats, right? But they're actually the smallest. So it just goes to show you the power of marketing that these parties do. But the reality is so much different, and we need to take advantage of the reality and forget the marketing, right? So yeah. Let's go to Fly McFly, and then Dr. Deborah Jenkins. Then we'll go to Redev, I don't know, and then Insane. RHD, I'll just say that. Are you there, Fly McFly?
What's up? How you doing?
How you doing, man?
Yeah, this is Afro, right?
Yeah, exactly. Afro is kind of like the crypto side of things. The party is focused on obviously the United States. Oh shoot, my bad. I was on mute. Yeah, Afro is on the crypto side of things. The party is focused on reparations in the United States, and obviously, like I said, Freeman Reconstruction and genocide prevention. But it's dope that you know Afro as well. You still there, Fly McFly? Looks like you might be in the Matrix. We'll come back to you, Fly McFly. Try muting, unmuting, and if that doesn't work, try leaving and coming back up. Let's go to Dr. Deborah Jenkins, then RHD, then Insane.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Eric. Thank you so much for this space.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. I was a little under the weather last week, but much more under the weather last week. Still a little bit, but I wanted to come out and say thank you for the training, the boot camp that you are giving to these prospective candidates. I'm so in total support of the Freedmen Party and your desire to educate our community, first of all, about what it means to be a candidate, what it's going to take to become a candidate, and that you are galvanizing all the resources so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel in order to really make a sound decision as to whether or not to run. And so pleased to be a part of your sphere. I also wanted to add the data visualization piece I'm loving because it really gives a quick snapshot of, like you just said, what we need to focus on, what matters most to us across many different spectra that we don't hear in the mainstream media. So kudos to you and the Freedmen Party Network, the Freedmen Party, the convention that you hosted. I am so hopeful that there will be many in this audience tonight, and as you continue to present the boot camp to our community, who will step up to the plate. One thing I would want to encourage, and I totally understand the federal level that we must continue to be concerned about retaking, like you mentioned about the Congressional Black Caucus. You know, that's my pet peeve. I have a little project going on with their report, a CDC report. But I don't want us to forget that we also are disadvantaged in terms of land purchasing and ownership. And so we need to think sometimes on the very micro levels of government, and they're very important parts of government: land committees, commissions. The names will vary from state to state, from city to city. But I always tell people, don't forget the school boards. Don't forget the public safety and public health commissions. These are often elected positions as well, and we need to be strategically placed within all of our cities on these committees. We really do. So those campaigns won't cost as much as the federal campaigns, but they're as important because when those federal candidates come through, they have to go to the school boards. They have to go to the land use commissions and committees. All elected positions matter. And so I think a good part for people to research in their own cities is the way their cities are structured. So they can see who the elected officials are, the county this, the county that. Where the power resides, the federal candidates will come through eventually. So I just want to throw that out there for those who are doing the consideration of running as a Freedmen Party candidate, but not to limit themselves only to the federal level, but they should also consider some more local offices because it's going to make a difference when we are trying to revive and make communities for our own people who is telling us we can and can't, and we need to be in those rooms making the decisions to give big portions of land to Black Americans. So that's all for tonight, and thanks again, Eric, for letting me speak.
Of course, Dr. Deborah Jenkins, I love you. I love seeing you in the spaces. Love seeing your spaces and your interviews you be doing. You're an amazing person. Keep up the great work. Definitely agree with the land part. I actually did some calculations after I read through the Special Field Order 15 and the Freedmen Bureau Act. In Special Field Order 15, they mention basically 10 acres per, or 40 acres per freedman family, which breaks down on average to 10 acres per freedman. And I calculated, there's 42 million freedmen. I looked at the 40 acres and calculated that out of the total available acres in the U.S., which is about 2.4 billion, that would be around like 1.6 billion acres. So it wouldn't work by 40 acres per person, but 40 acres per family, 10 acres per person, that would be workable given the total available land in the United States today. So we can get 10 acres per freedman as well as the $6 million as in addition. Um, White people during the Homestead Act got 160 um, acres per family. Um, so basically, we're doing the 40 acres calculation for the 16 trillion for the 40 acres that were taken away, and then for the 120 acres that we didn't get, um, we can calculate that as well in terms of the racial wealth gap differential. Um, so I think land is definitely important, and we shouldn't have to buy it with our reparations. You know what I mean? That's kind of like hustling backwards. um, but yeah, land will definitely be part of our reparations. At least 10 acres per freedman, and that's doable. Uh, let's go back to Fly McFly because he got cut off. Um, I don't know if you heard my response, Fly McFly, but yep. I also got Afro on the crypto side, and then after that, you got cut off.
Yeah, I got a call. I'm gonna keep this short because I want to return that call. But I have a different account also. And I want to say, man, you can do anything for me. So I respect the hard work that you put in.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure. I personally, ever since I met you, around like January. I've been, continuously involved in the spaces, not per se just with you, but just in general. And I've always been like involved. I've always been in student council and just things revolving around my community. As I'm an adult older now, I'm scaling it up. So I joined the NAACP. I don't agree with everything it stands for, but I just want to be involved in my community. And I like some of the people within that. And I want to run for councilman also within my town. I'm going to my first council meeting next week. I'm not saying I'm gonna something I'm gonna do like right away. I think the next time you run is like a year or 2 years, but I want to continuously go. I have some things I want to voice, and I just want to see like how they operate, if they're up to par. But I do have a question for you. I just wanted to, introduce myself before I ask this question. So I agree with pretty much. I didn't look into like your legislation, but like I've heard you speak many times, and I pretty much agree with most of everything you say and what you represent. But my question to you is this: like for a candidate to win, they're gonna need more than just black votes. So how would the Freedmen Party, what would like entice a candidate to run under the Freedmen Party to acquire more than just black votes? Not saying that that's not important, but you gotta win. So that's my question.
Yeah, so kind of two things. One, let me just push back a little bit. There are places where we don't need other people besides us to win. So, like I said, out of the current seats that the CBC holds, like there's like 53 of them. Out of those 53 seats in the House, um, about 19 of them are in districts that are either majority black or there's more black people than white people. And you also have nationally, out of 435, at least 36 of them have black majorities or more black people than white people. So, at least in those, which basically comprises most of Congress, or of the CBC rather, um, we can attack those without necessarily needing to get a bunch of allies on board. That aside, obviously, you want to have the greatest appeal to garner as many votes as you can. Um, we think the agenda items of reparations now, freedmen reconstruction, and genocide prevention are not only important for us as voters to know about and to push for, but also for our own candidates to run on, and for when they're running on it, for voters to who are maybe non-freedmen to be able to accept. Who's going to tell us, oh, don't focus on genocide prevention, don't focus on um, freedmen reconstruction and solving the problems that reconstruction were designed to, but was overturned in 1877. And only evil-hearted people would be against these things, right? Reparations, for example. So, in terms of that, I don't see any good-hearted people being against those three things. Now, if they're against it, then they don't deserve, um, uh, or you don't deserve their vote anyways, because they're evil and they're going to do disastrous things with it in that sense. So, I don't think you have to compromise on that. Now, that doesn't mean if you're running in other areas or that you can't have other things on your agenda in addition to the three that we think are important for freedmen, right? Like if you have, um, a mixed community, you need to represent people that you're going to be your voters and your constituency. So you may need to get their agenda and add that to your overall agenda, right? But in terms of what the party is focused on, and in terms of what our endorsements we want focused on, you have to have these three agenda items. And if you want to add more, that's on you. But what's important for us as a party and us as freedmen are those three agenda items: reparations now, freedmen reconstruction, and genocide prevention. So I hope that answered your question, Fly McFly.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to seem like I'm attacking you or anything.
No.
I just, I'm like.
It's a good question. You asked a good question.
Yeah, because I'm genuinely thinking about running, and I'm speaking to people, and I want to be able to appeal to them. And if I just choose not, if I just, the only thing I say is reparations, they're probably that's. I just don't think that conversation is going to be as productive as it should be. Not saying that.
Well, you got to talk. You got to talk to your audience. So, obviously, like the important part about politics is, you have all these, because America is multiracial. You have multiple people and multiple agendas you need to answer to based on the demographics of your district or state or what have you. So, um, like I said, there's districts where it's all freedmen. So if you go around trying to appeal to white people, you're going to seem really ridiculous. Likewise, if you're in another district where um, that may be not the case, you need to make sure that you're still answering to people who may vote for you. So you answer to the Freedmen agenda, and then if you have, you know, another group that has their own agenda, if you agree with it, then you can add that to your campaign agenda as well. Um, but that doesn't mean that those are going to become party agenda items necessarily. So that's kind of the difference. Like you could totally add other things to your agenda, but our focus will be on those things. And like I said, those are the foundation for all of our endorsements in terms of the agenda we think they should run on.
Well, I just want to close with I think you guys are laying down a good, like you said, foundation.
Thank you.
So,
oops, sorry, I didn't mean to mute you. I was trying to hit the heart. If you want to unmute, I think you got cut off.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say all good. Keep up the good work. Right now I just like to listen and
Thank you.
see. And I'm still developing my game plan. Like I said, I was just in the NAACP. I'm going to the city town hall. So I'm just gonna be here, and when I feel the need to speak, I will. And when I don't, I'm gonna listen. I try to catch as much as I can.
Yeah, appreciate that, bro. And great to see you in the space. And great to hear that you're interested in running. Definitely go through the boot camp in full. Like, click on all the videos and go through them. It'll give you some more information on the FEC side, and then we got Ida Tubman reading through things in some more detail in terms of like reading the full UN definition and of reparations and genocide, for example. But yeah, definitely check it out. Let's go to RHD. I did see your question in the chat. You said, The overall numbers you talked about on the amount of freedmen in the U.S., did those numbers include foreign-born blacks, people from outside the U.S.? So
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was asking. Like, how did those numbers break out? I know on the census there really isn't nothing that says what kind of black you are. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. So out of the 47 million people who answered African American on the U.S. Census, 80% are freedmen, and 12 and 6% are, uh, which is basically if you average it, it's about 20%, rounded up. So about 20% are African immigrants. So that's about 5 million people that are African immigrants. 42 million are freedmen. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of wanted to, because I guess you see the Twitter debates and things about ADOS, FBA, and everyone else.
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing.
Yeah. I think it's important to at least know the breakdown in terms of numbers. It really says a lot in terms of political power, meaning we have a lot as freedmen, a lot more political power, obviously. Also, this is a slight tangent. I looked at the number of white people in the U.S. is not accurate. It's around 200 million based off the U.S. Census. But if you look at the definition of white on the U.S. Census, from the U.S. Census website, it includes people from Africa and the Middle East, which is ridiculous. So, anyways, they're inflating their numbers. But I was looking at the Homestead Act recently because it came up out of nowhere, and I was looking up information because I heard people like the Black Tax and Dr. Verity talk about how many of them that exist today benefited from the Homestead Act, and today that number is 93 million living descendants who benefited from the Homestead Act, which basically means colonial white people. You know what I mean? So about 93 million. You see what I'm saying? So there's really 93 million, white people, and then the rest are maybe immigrants that either from North Africa or the Middle East or Europe that are immigrants. You know what I mean? So, but basically, half the people on the U.S. Census that answered white are immigrants. Basically.
Yeah, so that's my kind of point, because during colonial periods, white people were pretty much the white people who immigrated from Scotland and maybe Germany, England, and things like that. And then later, the immigrants from Ireland and Italy were the immigrants that kind of came in and eventually became white.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of goes to my point. Will it be a point where some Africans have been in the United States for so long that they kind of blend into the freedmen?
No. So this is why status is important. Going back to, I mentioned there's three types of citizens. There's freedmen, native, and immigrant. Now, again, you could be mixed, but if you have an ancestor that was a freedman, then you're a freedman, right? Now, you can't go back in time and create a freedman ancestor. So even if you immigrate here, you can't create an imaginary freedman ancestor and become a freedman.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see if you break it down from that definition, it kind of makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a super important distinction, and one of the things that's important is to understand these statuses, like freedman, native, and immigrant, are specific to a country. So if you're a freedman and you immigrate to another country, you're no longer a freedman of that country. You can't be like, I'm a Nigerian freedman. You know what I mean? Because you're not. You know what I mean? You would be an immigrant there. You know what I mean? And the same way, if you're a native here and you go to another country, you can't claim to be a native of Nigeria, Jamaica. No, you're an immigrant. You know what I mean? So all of these kind of definitions are important and distinct to a country. So yeah, it's super important to know that. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Appreciate your time. Thank
you. Definitely. Great question, man. Insane, you were next up, and then let's go to Inspired, then Freedman, then Cyber Woman.
Freedmen Party, thanks for hosting the space. Great space, a lot of important information, and definitely a valuable teaching tool for those people who feel very frustrated with the system and have already written the system off because they don't feel like they can access it. Mm-hmm. And I definitely think it's a way that might stimulate that 12 million figure you used in terms of people who are either unregistered voters or not simply not voting. So I think it's probably nothing wrong with it in terms of using it to try and reach that 12 million. Maybe very successful with that. I like the idea of a national presence. I think it's very much known. We cannot do enough in terms of separating and making it clear that we are unique and distinct people with certain wants and needs. I do agree with Dr. Deborah and Cherie in terms of the value of this type of identity, lineage-based movement on the local level. I feel that is definitely
My bad. I got finger triggered, hit that mute, my bad.
Okay, that's fine. Anyone running on a local level, especially in the midst of doing that, would certainly be willing, I think, to consider it as a freedman. And the only thing I would add is that anybody that is exposing themselves to the local political scene, I would only encourage them to consider obviously running, but even if they aren't running, there are a lot of committees and stuff that you can volunteer for just to familiarize yourself with what's going on in local politics and, just getting a feel for what's going on. Certainly anybody that is entertaining the idea of running as a freedman, it wouldn't hurt to do that. It can only give greater insight. One other thing, I know that there are a lot of freedmen involved in this national quote-unquote pull-up in September, and I'm just wondering if this teaching tool, if you're encouraging anyone to utilize this teaching tool at some of these large gatherings. That'll be it for me.
Yes, thanks for all the feedback and great ideas, man. Definitely agree with you there, both on the local and state level. I definitely want to add more information on that in terms of kind of people just knowing what seats are available. You know what I mean? Because I think we have like a basic idea, but there's some positions that people probably have never heard of. You know what I mean? Like comptroller, like like when we were going up against Tennessee for St. Basin, like I had never heard of a comptroller before. You know what I mean? So like there's all these positions that we should know about that, they got these random people in office and they doing mischievous things. So, we gotta fire those people as well. And then in terms of those pull-ups and, trying to have that at the pull-ups, I think that would be a great idea. If anybody wants to use the boot camp and present it at one of these pull-ups, that would be amazing. You could either present it yourself, maybe Skype in if there's some way to do that, or some people I have like Ida Tubman kind of narrating it, so you could play videos of you actually play the videos and then have it be read that way. And I basically just made it say all the stuff that we need to cover, that I've basically covered it in this space. So yeah, I think that's a great idea as well, and I'll definitely kind of spread the word on that. So thank you for the suggestion. Let's go to Inspired, then Freedman, then Cyber Woman, then Padrino.
Okay, really quickly, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Deborah spoke about in reference to the local level. You do not know how important the rural, those county and parish offices are in reference to the land. Some of the land that was stolen from our ancestors or from formerly enslaved people, from freedmen, you could actually be in a position to advocate for that plan and the zoning and the planning of the cities and the counties. Like, we don't see the importance of those positions. And in our sacred burial grounds, if we're not in those positions to advocate for the planning and zoning of cities and counties and rural areas, like the Farmers Bureau, advocating for those farmers, the Black farmers, we have nobody in those positions advocating for freedmen. It is so important. And then on that local level, then you take the information to the state and to the federal level of that information that you gathered. A lot of these seats, you as a judge, you don't even have to be like a county juror or a judge sitting as a, they're called something else, but sorry for the kids in the back, but they're called something where you're making legal and law decisions for a small area. It could be the decision between someone taking someone's property for tax reason, or you giving those freedmen an opportunity to pay their taxes. So we do need to explore the local positions. A lot of these seats go uncontested for years. They're like passed down like roll seats to the next person that they want to sit in these seats. So yes, look into the local areas, research that information, because as we're placing people in the federal and the state level, we're going to need people that's advocating for those people and bringing the state and the federal people that information on what they need to be writing bills for, what we need to be fighting for. So it is very important. And I just wanted to say that. So thank you so much. Yeah, I'll land there.
Yes. Great information. Totally agree with you. There's so many seats that go uncontested, and it is despicable. And I see Freedmen down here, so I'm gonna mention something that Freedmen remind me of something I said last time that stuck out. Basically, don't disqualify yourself. Let the voters decide. And basically, don't feel like you can't run for any office. You know what I mean? Put in the work and run. And another side of this is, whether it be local, state, or on the federal, national level, no elected office is too low to serve freedmen and the United States. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to run for city council because I think it's too low of an office. No, that's city council, and your city controls your life. So thinking that an office is too low, no elected office is too low. So do not disparage any elected office. Feel that you are capable for running for any elected office. And really, all you need is the knowledge. And I would actually, one of the things that we can do as people go through the boot camp and go through that testing the waters phase, we'll be able to look at, like, city by city, district by district, state by state, which seats go the most uncontested, and then we can be strategic and say, okay, how about let's get someone on the sheriff, someone on the judge, someone on the DA, someone doing, you know what I mean? We need to have everyone up and down the ballot, so to speak, making sure we're filling all of these positions. We don't want 100 freedmen going after just one seat. You know what I mean? We want as many people in elected office so that they can all work together. If you're all there, you don't need to be fighting. You know what I mean? Got more votes to get legislation passed, more representation to make sure freedmen are served, all that good stuff. So definitely. Let's go to Freedmen and Cyberwoman, and then Insane. You got your hand up.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me come up to speak. Peace and reparations to the rum sappers under the weather. This is incredible work. I thank you so much for doing this. I mean, I am so proud of this type of work and to consider myself a freedman, because this is just actual, real, tangible things that our people can use and we all can use to really help us in this fight for reparations and reconstruction. One of the things, and I apologize if you went through this, I'm kind of, like I said, under the weather, and I was kind of doing some other things. I wanted to explore that the aspect of the freedmen reconstruction. And I'm wondering, is there like a specific things that you're required, or what I'm asking, how creative can you be with that, or is there a specific set of things? And I have a reason for asking that, but can you answer my question with that first?
Yeah, totally. So, Reconstruction 2.0 under Freedmen Reconstruction includes resurrecting the Freedmen's Bureau, uh, resurrecting Freedmen schools, and Freedmen hospitals, and Freedmen banks. So we had all of those institutions that were made to serve freedmen particularly. We have the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Bureau of Indian Education, for example, that serve only Indians, you know what I mean, Native Americans. Um, so we need the same type of treatment, and it needs to exist indefinitely. You know, it can't be overturned or killed by some assassination. Um, but yeah, I hope that answers your first question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that.
Totally.
And I guess I've kind of been exploring one of the things, and I think it may fit in with the restoring the Freedmen schools, and also as somebody mentioned, land, and that is.
Ooh. Sorry, my bad. Trying to hit the heart again. Unmute yourself, Freedman. I swear, I be trying to throw so many hearts. They need to move this mute button. This is just ridiculous. I don't know why they have it there.
Yeah, that's even using something like the Land Grant Act, where they took like federal lands and gave them to the states to build these schools. I mean, I started researching that a couple of years ago, and I was really surprised at how many schools, like universities and stuff, were basically established under the Land Grant Act,
exactly.
University of California, yep. And Michigan State, where I live, and a lot of Ohio State and all these universities. So, that would be something to me, that may fit under, some of that. And I really would like to really explore that and, see where we could go with that, because I think that would be like a powerful kind of tool that we could use for that. I mean,
yeah, totally agree with you. So just to add to that, during Reconstruction, that's when a lot of the Freedmen schools that are now HBCUs came into being. So Fisk is one of them, and one of the important things is we had K through 12 Freedmen schools, and we had higher education Freedmen schools, which are now called HBCUs, right? The other thing that I learned in the South, out of all the schools that were created, 232 were created for freedmen and 250 were created for white people. So like we had like on par like the same amount of schools. It's not like we didn't have, like they gave us 2 schools and made 200 for them. So just to see that many number of schools be created post emancipation was just incredible. So the fact that we don't have them and we're all thinking about, oh well, how do we get our kids properly educated, and the solution were our Freedmen schools, and we need to bring them back. We need to have them get funding at the K-12 level, where Freedmen have the best resources, the best technology, the best teachers, the best facilities, all these things. And the same should exist on the collegiate level as well. So I agree with you 100% in terms of that.
And I guess the reason why I look at that too is I think it's a lot easier to use laws that have already been created for us than to try to reinvent the wheel as well. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yes, exactly. That's why I've gone back and I've read like all the Reconstruction Acts, and then the Freedmen Bureau and the Freedmen Bank. We're going to do a space later this week where we're going to read through that as a group. But basically, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We already have the legislation, and it's saved. And all we literally have to do is go back through it, remove the sexist parts, and then upgrade it for today. You know what I mean? So yeah. Cyberwoman, it's your turn. Then we'll do Harriet, then Insane, since Harriet hasn't got a chance to speak yet.
Thank you so much, Freedmen Party, A Boogie, and I Love Clarity for hosting this space. This is awesome. This is like superior information that we are receiving. I did want to respond to the gentleman that was concerned about the diaspora wars on Twitter, and just to let him know, only 23% of Americans are even on Twitter. The majority of people walking around in America have no idea what's going on Twitter. And these people who are immigrants who can't vote, or they either live on another continent where they cannot vote in America. So don't let that disturb you at all. As a matter of fact, when I'm in those rooms and those people start to come in, I just go on and leave the rooms because I know what their agenda is. But they cannot affect our voting. So don't let the diaspora wars that go on social media, don't let them influence you at all. And Freedmen Party, one thing, when I first moved to Atlanta had one of the last remaining all-black hospitals. And I think that is what we need immediately, so that we can hire our own doctors, Black doctors, not Nigerian doctors, doctors who know our body makeup, our chemistry, who know what it takes to heal Black people. And we have so many Black women dying that are under doctors' care, and maybe we can. If you've run across information about how we lost our hospitals, I think the one here in Atlanta, the reason they lost is because Grady, which is a trauma hospital, Grady kind of came along and they built their trauma up, so they took a lot of business away from that Black-owned hospital. Do you have any information on, how we lost the hospitals and how we can get them back?
Totally. This is great topic. So this goes back to, it's actually two parts: part Freedmen Reconstruction, part genocide prevention. So just on the genocide prevention part, when we were breaking things down, like into each part of the definition of genocide, you can see who they are attacking. Lynching and massacres primarily attack freedmen men, as well as physical and mental harm. Apartheid attacks everyone that's a freedman. Extermination mainly attacks freedmen women. The abortion rate, infant mortality, maternal mortality, and the hysterectomy rate, for example. And then family separation, child welfare, child protective services, and foster care, it affects children. So they have a sector for each of us that they're going after. So it's not like they're just attacking us in one way. They're attacking men in one way, women in another way. And that's why we don't see, you don't never see a woman, lying on the street, because all this stuff usually is happening in the doctor's room, right? It happens behind closed doors where the Black men are usually killed on camera and lying on the street. Not saying like, Sandra Bland's don't happen as well, but just or Breonna Taylor's even. But the health is where we are attacked the most. Now, in terms of how we lost them, a lot of it has to go back to what you said at the end, which is, you mentioned the trauma care and that being a part of business. These would be government-funded institutions that will exist indefinitely, that do not need to rely on finances and relying on profit, a profit motive to stay in existence, right? So our educational institutions, so just go back to Freedmen Reconstruction, the Freedmen's Bureau, our Freedmen Schools, our Freedmen's Bank, and the Freedmen Hospitals will be funded by government funding. It will not come out of things like all trying to make their money from profit from freedmen, for example. I think that's backwards, and that would lead to a lot of even problems in terms of, we already know we don't have the wealth position that we should have, and even when we get reparations, we shouldn't spend it all on hospital bills. You know what I mean? This should be free services that help us, and it's a public service essentially for us.
Right. Okay. So with government funding, that means that they would have to be gendered by government rules, which they say cannot discriminate against certain religion and all of that. Okay.
Exactly.
So how are we going to be eliminating the problem of bad doctors?
Yes.
If we,
now keep going.
Yeah. No, if we have to still hire some of these doctors, and a lot of Indian, Asian, and Nigerian doctors who do not have our best interests at heart, how can we get around that?
I think that's a great question. This goes to the unemployment rate. Freedmen represent twice the population that are unemployed in terms of, we're twice as likely to be unemployed than any other race. Now, this doesn't mean we don't have the skills in terms of educational attainment and skill level. We do have the skills. We do have freedmen doctors that don't have hospitals that they can work out of usually, or that they get hired at. You know what I mean? They're picking other people. They're not picking freedmen. You do have some places where obviously we do have freedmen doctors, but the freedmen schools, the freedmen banks, freedmen hospitals, freedmen bureau, unlike what happened, for example, with the Freedmen Bank, it was ran all by white people, and they plundered the $57 million. So all of these institutions need to be ran by freedmen, and they need to be audited and make sure that they're operating in the good faith towards the legislation and how it was written. So I totally agree with you. We need freedmen doctors. We need freedmen teachers in our schools. We need freedmen tellers at our banks. And then we need freedmen in the Freedmen's Bureau that are working and working on everything that bringing families together, genealogy, whatever that needs to be done. We want them staffed by freedmen. And we think that is super, super important in terms of making sure that it's done right.
Great. Okay, thank you so much for your response.
Yeah, of course.
And I just want to add just really quick to that point. You have to understand we're going to get pushed back when we start having our own hospitals, own institutions. We have the first brain surgery was done by a freedman. The first heart surgery was done by a freedman. Every prosthetic, genetic, those things were developed. Those computers are developed by freedmen. So we're going to get pushback because what's going to happen when we create our own institutions. They're going to have to come to our institution to get that expertise. So I just wanted to put that out there that we're going to have to fight for everything that we're going to do, but we're going to come out on the other side better for that.
Yeah, Tony, I forget his last name, but he was in that the issue is genocide video that we live streamed the other day. He said something that was really funny that I liked. He was like, build up your institutions. He was doing a little more bootstrapperism, but that aside, he was like, make your schools so good that white people sue you to sit next to your kids. I thought that was hilarious. So the point in all of that is like we want our own freedmen institutions, and we want people to be jealous of our institutions. I'm jealous that they got the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Bureau of Indian Education. That doesn't mean I can just go up in there and say, oh, this is for me. No. You know what I mean? So we need our own institutions. And yeah, you should be mad at them because you treated us like trash for 400 years. You know what I mean? So this is what we get in return. You already can go to white hospitals. There's already historically white colleges and historically white hospitals and all these things. They already exist. The historically white banks. It's called Chase and Bank of America. You know what I mean? You already got all of those things. And even if you compare things today, like the amount of money in all white banks versus black banks, the biggest black bank has like around $1 billion in it. These white banks have trillions of dollars at their disposal. So the levels of disparity we're talking about doesn't even come close. So it's not even a question, that they can complain about us when we've getting the short end of the stick for 400 years. Harriet, and then Insane.
Peace, power, and reparations, family. Man, let's give it up for the Freedmen Party. Our brother, hey, Boogie, you know what I'm saying? Look, man, y'all don't get enough respect, but I'm putting some respect on y'all name right now. Y'all bringing this education and what our people really need to be hearing. Like you said, all of this information is already on the books. This is spaces that our people need to be holding and having. This is progress. This is the real right here. But I just want to preference on what I'm about to say. You know what I'm saying? This right here is what we're going through. I call it the Freedmen political renaissance.
Yeah.
That's what it is right now. You know what I'm saying? I made a tweet earlier saying that we need 100,000 plus freedmen in political office right now. You know what I'm saying? And don't think that you don't got no support. You want support? Okay, just do what you're supposed to, and you gonna get support. You gonna get money. You gonna get all that. You see how we supported Marcel? You gonna get that same energy, Max. I know you running. You gonna get that same energy, bro. You know what I'm saying? We out here. We see what y'all doing. This takes a collective effort. You are not alone. You know what I'm saying? All right, and then also we were talking about political representation. It's been taxation, representation. You know that is at its higher. You know what I'm saying? It's been like that for a long time. We have no freedmen, no real authentic freedmen representation in Congress or our political structure, and it's time for that to change. That's why we're going through a state of genocide. You know, and we're calling it out. You know, that we're going to continue advocating. We're definitely going to get what's owed to us. That's clear. Right now, we're just in the process of laying the foundation, so we'll know what to do when we get that. Also, I wanted to talk about just freedom information of books. You know what I'm saying? The legislation, all of that. The Freedmen Party does a great job of educating people about freedom and everything. I think the disconnect with the Freedmen term and terminology comes with a lack of knowledge, and this was done to us on purpose. You go to these HBCUs or whatnot, they try to pan-Africanize everything, but they don't teach nothing about the Freedmen. They don't teach nothing about our true history that ties us to this land, the same land that our ancestors died. Foundational Black American land. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And that is done on purpose and was done on purpose to put us in this situation. So I say this to say that it's time to step up. It is time for us to step up. You know, we are the culture. We represent American culture. Anything that's popping over here is because of us. So we have made politics pop, and we're going to continue to do so. So what I put in the Jumbotron, I put a political resource where you can get free political science classes. You can use it and you can pay for it if you choose to get a certificate. But if you don't want to get a certificate or anything, you can do there and gain the knowledge. I took one of the classes already. Is very high quality. And again, we're gonna be building resources for our people to gain this knowledge. Don't feel as if though just because you didn't go to school, quote unquote, go to school for it, that you're not gonna be able to get the knowledge because it's out here and we're gonna bring it. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is I hear people. I think I love clarity. I'm about to give you some clarity right now. How we gonna make sure that people gonna treat us right, and how we gonna make sure that they treat us right in these hospitals, by the police and all of that. We are going to be a protected class, protected ethnic group, protected freedmen. Some of this is long overdue. That's why what we're doing right now, we're delineating, and how we delineate and get that proper protection that we need is by using the freedmen terminology. And I want to land on this. I want to say that I'm proud of you all. If you're here, y'all know that this is a lot of knowledge, but take in all of this, and we are here to help. And I love y'all, and I'm gonna end right there.
Thank you, Harry. Love you too, bro. Love all the work you're doing. Really, really respect all of the good stuff that I see you putting out. I totally agree with your tweet earlier today. We need, just to compare to the Justice Democrats, their batting average, they started with 10,000, they endorsed 2,000, and only one person won. That's like 1 out of 10,000. So, in my opinion, we can have a better batting average. I think that was trash. You know what I mean? But that aside, if we use that as like a bare minimum, we do want hundreds of thousands, and we do want like millions of people even running for office. Um, we shouldn't feel like we're not qualified. We need to feel very much qualified. Our ancestors, like I mentioned earlier, 2,000 of them were in political office during Reconstruction. That's post emancipation. Okay. Now, out of that 2,000, obviously all were not at the federal level. So you had people on the local, state level, people being sheriffs, people being mayors, all that good stuff, right? So the other thing is on the voting side. So like Harry was saying, you have our support. You know, if you're running, we need to gain even on the voter side, we need to come together to get back to our Reconstruction levels. So just to give you two examples, our highest turnouts were one during Reconstruction. We had 80% turnout during Reconstruction in terms of how many people voted. 80% of us voted during Reconstruction, right? Now, the second highest that we've had, guess when? Obama, 2008, 2012. We had, obviously, we got finesse, right? But we had the highest turnout since Reconstruction. And we had a higher turnout rate than even white people. We had the highest of any race, the highest turnout. And then after we realized we got screwed by Obama, our turnout rate dropped back down to 60%. So we need to get back up to at least 80% to Reconstruction levels and damn near 100%. There's no reason why we shouldn't all be voting. No reason at all. Every person not voting is billions of dollars burned, basically. So you would never burn $1 billion without spending it. So you should spend it and get your vote counted. Let's go to insane. Actually, one more thing, and I'll go to insane. Someone else mentioned about the diaspora and the non-voters. That is so important. I forgot to bring this up. Stop arguing with people who don't even matter to our political atmosphere. They can't vote, which means they have no say so. They can be like, screw reparations all day. It doesn't matter. They can't vote. The other thing is, if you want to settle, who is putting in work and who's not, and da 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 da, you want to compare, measuring sticks, so to speak. You can look at GDP. Freedmen have an annual GDP of $2 trillion, and the entire continent of Africa has a GDP of $1 trillion. So we have 42 million of us. There's a billion people in Africa. So we do twice the amount of work in a year with a fraction of the population. So don't let anybody talk down on us. We put in work. Okay, now that that's settled, insane.
Hey, Harry Tubman's Pistol, thanks so much, man. Everything you said and more. Touching on the importance of any political office local, I think it's mindful. We should remember that even a position like sheriff, which is part of the police agency, that's a politician. That is a politician you're looking at, and I think a lot of people forget that. And I'll use the county next to me, which would be Durham County, Durham, North Carolina. They have a black sheriff there now, and he or she is not even. They're giving a pass to people who aren't even citizens regarding stopping them, finding them with no licenses, providing sanctuary to them. Ideal Freedmen candidate would be doing stuff exclusively for people who have been wronged historically. That's the way that should look. So there's an example I'll use regarding political office at the local level. A sheriff, a Freedman, should be doing things to help people who have been underserved, wronged, and historically wronged. The sheriff in Durham is giving a pass to people who are non-citizens. So that's enough about that. Regarding what Freeman Angel was saying about, I think it was land grant institutions. I know that A&T is the oldest land grant HBCU in North Carolina. Where it ranks nationally, I'm not absolutely sure, but it is a land grant institution and seems to be doing quite well. I don't know what the future holds for them with all of this people people of color stuff going on and things like that, but I do know it's growing rapidly. Regarding what you were trying to touch on, I love clarity. I don't know if you were looking for justice of the peace or magistrate in terms of judges and positions.
Yes. Thank you. That don't need a law degree. Correct.
Right. And I think in Louisiana, they still have justices of peace, or justice of peace, if I'm correct.
Yes, they do. And it's not, they're not challenged and no degree.
Oh, they are. Wow, I did not know that about them. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So that's a position should definitely be looked at locally, because I think you were mentioning something about land that had been taken. And I know I read an article. I think it's Louisiana, about land that was taken from these people, and now some huge chemical company owns the property or something like that.
Yes, well, just think if we were in those positions when they were doing the research for those zoning and planning meetings, and we can say, well, this was 110 acres that was stolen from a man that was lynched in 1920. We would be in the room, or I guess the room where those decisions are being made in order to advocate. So when they're making the decision with the chemical plant to buy the land from the city, we can say, okay, we need to offset some of this money for the family. That's how important that is.
Absolutely. And who was it? Freedmen Warrior. She was speaking about the importance of health. Healthy women. That's really like the future and the growth of the nation. And too many people are walking around still today in the Black woman's womb, and therefore in the Black community. That's definitely just important as the financial piece, the healthcare piece. Absolutely. Up there at the top of the list must be dealt with. And that's all I have to offer.
Thank you for that, Insane. Definitely agree with your points. Man, I love spaces like this when we just build. Ain't nobody fighting and saying, you know what I mean? Just a productive space. So I really appreciate all the energy everybody is bringing. It just goes to show how much talent we have. We are so talented. Freedmen run everything. Everything that we participate in, we win. So we need to get as active in our democracy and just take over. Like I said, even though we got finessed by Obama, we ain't gonna let that happen again. And the fact that we were able to get a president elected just shows that we can get anybody elected if we come together. And it doesn't have to be Obama. It could be who we put in office. So let's not have candidates brought to us on a menu. Let's raise our own candidates, right? And then support them and give them the backing that they need to win. So I'm going to start winding down, but I'm going to give everyone a chance for any last words, any last thoughts, comments. I'm going to start with Freedman Angel, then Insane, then Max, then Inspired, then A Boogie.
Oh, yeah, thank you for holding this space. I really learned a lot. It was just excellent, all the information. And I think this is something that I'm going to be able to use, and definitely that all of us are going to be able to use. So once again, thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you, and good evening to you, Freedman Angel. Definitely feel free to go through the boot camp on your own time if you want to go through all the videos. Again, like I didn't click through all the videos because I tried to narrate most of it, but go through the videos because there is some information that could be helpful for you in there. And then when the test gets finalized, I want to have it done like tomorrow at the latest. So I want to get that out for people who have gone through the boot camp and feel that they're ready to take the test. But at least study it for a week so you feel like you can know everything and can kind of just spit facts off the top of your head and sound pretty cool. You know what I mean? It's gonna be like, I'm surprised I can remember all these numbers, but they're so important to me, because I'm like, these are our numbers. It's not like I'm just got to remember how many this or that. It's like, nope, these are our numbers. I'm going to remember 16 trillion for that 40 acres. I'm going to remember 230 trillion for our 4 million ancestors, So like all these little numbers. And I definitely remember that 1.3 from the Freedmen's Bank. Like, I don't know. These are ingrained in my brain. So, yeah.
I wanted to just drop this real quick, and I know Harry, I see you. One of the things, you remember the Tea Party? It was like a separate party inside of the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember that they were pushing agendas that had nothing to do with us. So we don't have to worry about a political narrative that includes anyone else. If we're running on the truth, it's going to work out. So I just want to put that out there. They had a whole separate party inside the party. Remember, it was the Tea Party.
Yeah, no, that's facts. And I looked at the evolution of the Tea Party to try to understand it. And basically, it was an offshoot of the GOP. They had early people like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio types that they got into uh, office. And then with Trump, they basically took over the GOP. So, everybody like the Tea Party is the GOP now. So it's kind of interesting. So, but again, the overall trend, like I said, with the whole Democrats, Republicans, they're dying. So what I think is going to end up happening as the Freedmen Party rises, you're going to have these white supremacist parties merge because they're not going to have any other way to win elected office. So you're going to have like Freedmen Party versus the Democrat GOP new party, and you did have like it was called what, the Democratic Republicans or yeah, I think it was called the Democratic Republicans at first, and then they just chopped off the Republican part. So they're gonna merge back again, and basically the white supremacist party versus the Freedmen Party. That's how I kind of see it. Yeah, Harry, you got your hand up there. I'll get back to the. I think I skipped insane, but go for it, Harry.
Man, I had to say, oh, go ahead. You was gonna go.
I don't know if it was urgent, but insane was next. Then I'll go to you, Harriet. Then we'll do inspired and able.
Well, okay. I was ready to hear Harriet Tubman's pistol. He's always got something good to say. But anyway, thank you so much. I love clarity for pointing that out, which was something else that I was wanting to know if there were other reference models out there. And the Tea Party is a good model. That was my only other question, in terms of being able to present people something that they can touch and feel, and give them confidence in knowing that this thing can be done. So yeah, it's great citing that. I'm sure there are other examples out there of candidates that came out of nowhere. They saw a niche or a place that they could fit in where other people were ignoring. Those types of examples, I think, are very good too. I can't think of anything else I would want to add other than saying thank you for holding this space, and thank you for presenting the teaching tool, the Bootcamp, and I will certainly utilize it. Thank you, and good night.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Insane. I've been seeing Insane be retweeting a bunch of our stuff in all his comments. I appreciate it, Insane. That's how I recognize you. Yeah, like one of the other things that we have in our history besides the Reconstruction period, we have the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, founded by Fannie Lou Hamer, our first Freedmen founded party. And then we also have the Black Panther Party, that was our second Freedmen founded party. Now, the Freedom Democratic Party lasted 4 years. The Black Panthers lasted 16 years. But when we compare to how long we've served the Democrats and Republicans, 75 years on average over this last 150 years, we haven't really put all of our effort into our own party. So I think it's important that we do that, take the lessons from Reconstruction, take the lessons from Fannie Lou Hamer and the Freedom Democratic Party, take the lessons from the Black Panther Party, and then bring this new energy to this Freedmen fight that we need. So yeah, I appreciate your comments, Insane. Let's do Harriet. I really appreciate Harriet's thoughts too. Harriet, you're next up, then Inspired, then Able.
And the Freedmen political renaissance is now in session. That's all I have to say. I'm gonna be honest with you. I stepped out to talk to my grandmother and tell her all the great things that the Freedmen Party is doing. You feel me? And y'all know what she told me? She said all of this should have been happened. You know what I'm saying? But they've been evil. They've been out here doing evil. Been out here doing dirt. And now everything's coming full circle. America, we're not playing games. And again, I gotta reiterate this. The thing about the Freedmen language is everything is on the books, guys. The Freedmen Party is over here doing the work. All we gotta do is upgrade it, modernize it, and we in there. You know what I'm saying? They never thought that we was gonna come together as a collective and do what we're doing now. All that's on confusion, it's on dissension, and all of that, that's what they expected us to do with these Twitter spaces. They didn't know that we were going to collectively come together, be tracing our lineage, and doing something extremely productive, having one big family reunion in real time. So that's what this is about. It's about resetting our culture, resetting ourselves politically, because before we were even able to vote, we got locked out of voting for such a long time, and we've been getting systematically oppressed and systematically engineered that, again, our votes really haven't did nothing for us. So now this is just a resetting of that. It's not about voting for the Democrats or Republicans anymore. It's not about that. It's about what you gonna do from the inside and how can we support you. It's about using resources like the Freedmen Party and us taking our voting block and our voting base and using it to empower ourselves instead of empowering other groups like we've been. This is one of the biggest political moves that we could have ever made, and I think, matter of fact, I know that we're making Malcolm X proud, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you for that, brother. That was amazing, amazing rap you gave. One of the things I learned recently when I was going back through the Fannie Lou Hamer stuff in the Freedom Democratic Party, Martin Luther King Jr. endorsed the Freedom Democratic Party. In fact, he spoke on their behalf at the convention, Democratic convention, and he said something to the effect, the seating of the delegation from the Freedom Democratic Party has moral and political significance beyond the halls of that convention. So I think he said beyond Mississippi and the halls of that convention. So we have to recognize he was down with it. And then I saw a speech where Malcolm X was opening up for Fannie Lou Hamer, and he was supporting in support of the Freedom Democratic Party. So both of the ancestors from the 60s that people look to the most supported having our own party, but obviously it's not talked about because it's so powerful in terms of what it can do. Also, I look at these legacy organizations, and shout out to Fly McFly trying to join the NAACP and turn that big ass ship around, but they kicked out W.B. Du Bois, bro. So, and Fannie Lou Hamer. So I don't know how much hope, and they founded them motherfuckers. So I don't know how much hope you should have for that. Or not Fannie Lou Hamer. Ida B. Wells and W.B. Du Bois. So they both were basically kicked out of the NAACP. So, but the way I look at all these historical organizations in general is they were allowed to survive because of their lack of political power. Whereas the Freedom Democratic Party and the Black Panther Party were systematically destroyed because of the potential of political power that they were creating. So that's why we have to realize the value behind our vote, the value of running as candidates, and really representing America for what the best of America should be, right? And America can't be great, can't be what it can fully be unless freedmen are repaired. Or as Marcel likes to say, repair Black America to fix America, right? That's his slogan. It's a dope slogan. But yeah, inspired of the A Boogie, my amazing co-host. Go for it. Any last thoughts, comments, questions?
Oh no, I'm just really excited. All your great work. I love the fact that you listen and try to enact it and reinterpret it so that it can be explainable. Because sometimes my words don't be coming out. But I just want to thank the room and really excited of where we're going politically. And like I said, it's a train. Everybody's not going to be in the. Some people going to be in the caboose. Some people going to be in the front. But we're going. We're going to get where we're going. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, my kind of inside joke for Marcel's campaign is he was kind of like John, you know what I mean, shouting in the wilderness and kind of showing the way for all of us freedmen. So, I think it was important because he's the most exciting person I've seen run for office since I was finessed by Obama. You know what I mean? I was like, man, that was the biggest finesse of all time. You know what I mean? And then Kamala over here squeezed her way in. But you know what I mean? We dead in all of that. But Marcel is the real deal. Somerville, Tamara, and all these other candidates that are in this room now and don't even know it yet. We need y'all running for office and representative. So I'm super excited. I think we're on the right path, and we just gotta keep going. A Boogie, any last thoughts, comments, questions? A Boogie, you playing with your kid? He may be away from the phone right now.
I know. I done cooked dinner and everything.
I know. We've been in here for two hours. We've been in here for 2 hours, so don't even trip. I understand. I appreciate everyone's patience. Yeah, go for it, Harry. What's up?
I got something that I want to say. I'm sorry, y'all. I've been low key, and I've been in the lab politically cooking up.
Yep.
So I got to get off my chest. But this is the last thing I want to say. The RP, the Black Caucus, the NAACP, anything that quote unquote is quote unquote black and say they represent us, no. They don't. Clearly they haven't. You know what I'm saying? Look, we are delegitimizing all of that. And us moving in this direction is going to continue to delegitimize that. No more are they going to be able to use our plight to benefit us. To benefit themselves, but do nothing for us. To do something for the group of people who it was supposed to have meant for. But it's been co-opted. These organizations have been co-opted long ago. They just a shell of their former selves. So what we gonna do, we gonna make our ancestors proud and do this how it's supposed to do. And what we gonna do is we gonna have stuff in place where it can never be co-opted, because we see how that turned out. We're not playing with y'all protected class, and we're not miseducated no more. Shout out to Carter G. Woodson. We're not miseducated Negroes no more. We're here to help to take the chains off our brothers and sisters' brains.
Yes. 100%. I love that, bro. Yeah, I think it's super important. We're going in a new direction. The biggest finesses of 21st century was Obama and BLM. And with our freedmen knowledge we have, we are dead in all of those, because when we said Black Lives Matter, we meant Freedmen Lives Matter, right? And then they finessed that. Then when we was electing the first black president, we thought we was electing the first freedman president. And then we got finessed on that. So now that we learned those two lessons, like, we can't get finessed again. Our head is on a swivel. We're aware. We're woke, as the right wing hates. They had at CPAC, their slogan was "Awake, not woke." I was like, these people are corny. So anyway, that's like the Republican kind of like convention type thing. Anyways, I really appreciate all of y'all for coming. We've been in here for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Y'all are troopers. Thank you for all the listeners. Thank you for all the amazing speakers. Freeman Angel, Insane, Harriet, and our co-host, Inspired, and A Boogie. Really appreciate y'all coming through. If y'all missed any of it, please go back through and check the either the spaces or the video, because we got the video if you want to just go through the video. And yeah, really appreciate it. Tomorrow we're going to be back doing a space 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. So look out for that. And with that, peace out.
Later, Chairman. Bye, Boogie. Bye, everybody.
Peace out, y'all.